I'm here to report a terrible crime. This one.
Welcome back to my channel. This is coming from Fox News. Fetterman stumped by Dems reaction to Maduro's capture. Now, I am very stumped as well, because you have the people on the left, like the crazy leftists, liberals, Democrats, that are screaming at Trump, calling him a fascist, a dictator, saying that he's a king, and yet they're literally protesting in New York City, in Portland, and in Chicago, saying free Maduro. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like, it makes no sense. And you have Venezuelans that are telling these liberals, these white liberals, to, because they're like, look, you don't understand. This guy is an actual dictator that you're wanting to free. And we're telling you no. And you have all of these Venezuelans thanking Trump. And now you have the Cubans and the Hondurans coming out saying, please, Trump, please take our dictators too. Man, this is going to be a wild midterm. So let's jump right into the video, guys.
Senator John Fetterman sits on the Homeland Security Committee, and he joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for joining Fox and Friends this morning. You were one of the few Democrats that praised the president's actions of capturing this narco-terrorist to stand trial today in his first preliminary hearing. Senator?
Yes.
Your thoughts about what we're seeing? I don't know if you're able to see a monitor.
What we're seeing, it's like, yeah, I mean, for me, I think I don't know why we can't just acknowledge that it's been a good thing what's happened. I mean, I've seen the speeches from whether it's Leader Schumer or kinds of past tweets from President Biden. We all wanted this man gone, and now he is gone. I think we should really appreciate exactly what happened here, and I think we did, just as I've salute our military, what they've done. That was really surgical and precise and very efficient. So why we can't celebrate these kinds of things. And I'm open to the good opportunities that a better future for Venezuela after this happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely.
Now, the crazy thing is that Fetterman, I didn't have him on my bingo card, but man, this man has been surprising me left and right, because ever since the whole thing with the Democrats doing the shutdown, this is the man that's actually been going out there and literally is just for the people. He literally was like, hey, I'm going to vote to make sure my people don't go hungry. So, yeah, that's just insane. Now, apologies for the background noise. You know what time it is. It's time for my little quack quacks to go into the tub. So you'll hear my tub running as well as the quack attacks coming through. But let's keep going.
Right, there are 8 million displaced Venezuelans celebrating. Aren't the Democrats who are complaining about this, aren't they watching those celebrations, seeing them dancing, hearing their stories about not being able to go home, not being able to be by their grandmother's side when she's dying in Venezuela because they can't enter that country?
I agree. I mean, look at the kinds of places that they understand the good thing that happened here. They're celebrating these kinds of a thing. And now we want to remember the kinds of chaos and the suffering that Maduro brought to Venezuela. Why we all can't just call that as a good development now and be open to better kinds of outcomes for that nation. Our nation was forced to absorb over 500,000 Venezuelans. So now that's the kinds of chaos, and I think it was appropriate and surgical. This wasn't a war. This wasn't boots on grounds and in that kind of a way. This was surgical and very efficient, and I want to celebrate our military. And now they're also putting him on a trial. They didn't assassinate him. They didn't disappear him. He's actually on, our TV right now, and they're going to give him a trial right now.
Good point, yes.
Senator, I know you're not part of the Gang of Eight, but we're expecting a briefing from the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, as well as the Attorney General and the FBI. What does Congress need to hear from them? I feel like the administration has been quite transparent, but you guys are going to receive a classified brief in the Gang of Eight today.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody wanted to see about that video about that boat. And now we're not talking about that anymore. It's like, well, here, that happened. So, for me, I think Democrats, we all used to describe him as a dictator or a tyrant or a terrible person. And it wasn't less than a year ago, President Biden raised the bounty for $25 million less than a year ago. And now here we're in a better way to now. And that's why I think as a Democrat, just because it's a different party here, it's like I'm open to better opportunities for Venezuelan. And now I turn to a lot of the Venezuelans in our nation, and they're all celebrating these things. And we all.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing, is that they're all celebrating, Maduro's capture. And the thing with that is that, according to Grok, you literally had the UN meet up today, right? They had an emergency meeting, and over 50 countries, including the United States, most of the European Union, Canada, and several Latin American nations like Argentina, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and Uruguay, did not recognize Maduro as a legitimate president and viewed opposition candidate Edmund Gonzalez as the elected president. Now, you had a small number, primarily allies like Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, and Nicaragua, who continued to recognize Maduro as the legitimate president. So you had basically the majority of people in the UN saying hey, we might not agree with the shenanigans the U.S. did or how they went about it, but we do agree that something should have been done, and that this guy, Maduro, was not the president of Venezuela, and that the rightful president should have took hold. So it's funny that you do have, the UN, and I know they're still in talks, and they're supposed to come out with something, I believe, because they went to recess. Because I was watching it live just to see how it went and what they were talking about, what were they opposing, the reasoning behind it, which was funny because I kind of expected a lot of the answers from Russia, Iran, and stuff like that for them to oppose what the U.S. did because of the fact that they just don't like the U.S. So I get it. But you did have a lot of other countries that were saying Maduro is just a dictator, and some, like I said, they were cool with the way U.S. went in and got him. Others were saying that there should have been a better way to go about it. But they still sided with the fact that they agree with the U.S. that he was not the legitimate president of Venezuela, and that he was there doing more harm to the people of Venezuela than doing anything good about it. So yeah, those were the status that we're waiting for in regards to the UN, and we'll kind of talk about that, more to come from that once we have a final decision from the UN. But let's go ahead and get right back into the video.
Recognize that kind of warm collectivism, socialism in Venezuela. No one really liked to live under that, and they had to flee that. And now here we have a way forward, and now there's a trial, a public trial, and now here. So that's the way it works.
So Senator Chris Murphy, your Democratic colleague, called the operation wildly illegal. America doesn't want this war. Nobody asked for this. And I think the most important conversation to have is Venezuela is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. Do you want to take this on?
I respect my friend in Connecticut, but we have different views on this and perhaps other views as well. I just said this on my social media that, remind everybody that America is a force of good, order, and democracy, and we are promoting these kinds of values. We are the good guys. Let's pretend that now we are acting in a way. Now, remember, we all Democrats years ago wanted to eliminate him, and why have a bounty of $25 million if we didn't want him gone? Why would you do these things if you weren't willing to actually do something other than harsh language?
Senator, what is the future of Venezuela? Because a lot of people, since this has all happened on Saturday, have been saying, what about the bad actors that are still there? There have been some additional indictments, more than just Maduro and his wife, including their son. But what about the bad actors that are still in the Maduro camp that are living in Venezuela? How do you clean up a country when there's still people who support him?
Yeah, again, for me, I'd like to also make a point. You know, so many people were freaking out about the Iranian strikes, you know, or last year. I absolutely called for those things, and I supported those kinds of things. You know, the Middle East didn't just, you know, just spiral, and it was much more peaceful. And now all of the, you know, many of the members of BRICS are absolutely paying attention what happened in Venezuela. Whether if I'm in Iran, I'm thinking, whoa, maybe I won't they won't talk so tough anymore. And it just reminds people that we have the capabilities to touch you wherever you are. And now I think things are going to be more stable. If anything, you know, people are wrong about the Iranian strikes. You know, so for me, I'm open to better opportunities, you know, and I have to call it necessarily, it's positive, and I can't just condemn it just because I happen to be a Democrat.
Senator, the couple of things are happening right now. We're watching Maduro. He made his way from Brooklyn, choppered over to Manhattan, and he's outside the courtroom in the armored vehicle with his wife, maybe the first time that they've seen each other in 48 hours. And we're monitoring all this and seeing how it's going to unfold. But, Senator, as you look at the infrastructure that's still there, it's a risk. But the President Trump also saw what happened in Iraq when the entire government was taken out and they scrambled and the military wasn't paid. What he's saying is, I'm going to get out the main problem, but for the moment, to take out everyone keeping the buses running or the subways or whatever they have going probably would lead to so much unrest that thing could spin out of control. So it's a bit of a risk leading some of these bad actors in place, but it's a risk as if they've learned from what happened the last time we had to remove a brutal dictator that challenged the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to remind, you know, it wasn't that long ago that our military, the kinds of soldiers that were involved in this, weren't getting paid, you know, and I happen to be the one Democrat that wants to say, hey, we have to reopen our government. We should never shut it down and pay our military. People just exactly like those things. And I'm not going to compare this to everything to Iraq. Iraq was, you know, over 20 years ago, and that was, you know, that's where we are now. You know, people call that the Iranian strikes might be like Iraq, and that's just not true. And now maybe some of the so-called experts can just sit back and watch how things unfold at that. So for
hope
me,
for the best.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. And if you are putting in these $25 million and they're calling him that he has to go, and now these things now. Are you willing to do more than just harsh language on social media? Or are you really going to kind of just let's remember, 8 million Venezuelans were displaced and mass chaos. And now they were shipping drugs to our nation as well, too. So for me, it's like, why as a Democrat, you know, we can't just acknowledge that it was successful. And now it absolutely was a risk. And now that's why we're going to continue to monitor it. And I'm going to remain open to a better outcome for Venezuela and Venezuelans and the region.
Yeah, so, Senator, to that point about the region, the president seems to be clear now. He wants to change the way we're doing business, not only in Latin America, but the Americas in general. That includes Cuba as well, and some of the other countries as well, and try to fight off the influence of China and Russia. What do you make of this new foreign policy now that the president is implementing?
I'm saying that, you know, what I've seen, whether it's Iran now and Venezuela, it's like putting some of these actors accountable beyond just some rough language on social media. So that's where I'm at. And now how many experts call that the strike in Iran would spiral the region and create all kinds of mass chaos? That's just absolutely not true. That just didn't happen. And now perhaps Iran could even have a nuclear weapon now. So for me, if you're willing to stand up to people like this, Now, a lot of those members of BRICS are definitely paying attention and realizing that they can't continue to destabilize our global order without being held accountable and just things that.
So what I think when Trump did this with Maduro, this was like a warning shot. It was one of those things that said, hey, I can come for you any place, anytime, anywhere. And I could do it with precision. Like, nobody was injured. None of our military was injured. And what I think is freaking hilarious, kind of like what Fetterman said, is that we're not at war. Like, he went in, did the job, got back out, done, you know? And so I think it's funny that the left keeps saying, hands off Venezuela, we don't want war. It's like, bro, where you guys been? You know what I'm saying? But with this whole thing, though, it's funny because, like he said, 80 million people have been displaced, right, of Venezuelans. And you have Venezuelans all over social media, all over X, TikTok, Facebook, literally cheering this on, literally saying, like, we finally get to go back home. You know, if we can become, you know, like, have our own, like let's say version of the United States Constitution where they're free. Like, you have them screaming out in their own native tongue, we're free, you know, that they took down the tyrant, you know, mad, like, love to these people because they're just so happy to go back home, which is good for us because that means less people in our country if we're sending these people and letting them go back home and get, you know, instead of ICE having to go in and, you know, kick down the door and, you know, force these people back home. The fact that they're willing to go back home says a lot. It shows that they never really wanted to leave their country in the first place. They really wanted to be there. And for them to say that now they can go back home, you know, that says a lot about these people and their appreciation. You even have some of them saying on TikTok, oh my God, I never thought that Venezuela would become the 51st state of the United States before Puerto Rico. Like, hey, but we'll see how that goes. Well, let's finish off this video.
Happen here or whether in Iran.
Yeah, you're talking about India, you're talking about Brazil, you're talking about Venezuela, a lot of the outlets, South Africa, a lot of the outlaw nations, they want to be a counterweight to the G7 and our economic programs, and they were fancying themselves a threat. They're losing a major piece to that puzzle. Thanks so much, Senator.
Thanks, Senator.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian.
So, yeah, I love that, you know, Trump was like, because, you know, Maduro did this to himself.
Venga por mí. Aquí lo espero en Miraflores. No se tarde en llegar, cobarde.
I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine.
Yeah, so you had him saying that. Then, you know, he was like calling him a coward, saying it in his native tongue, calling Trump, telling him like, I bet you won't come get me. And Trump's like,
Here, hold him, beer. Now we see who swing the fastest gun.
You know, he went, got him, took him out real quick. And this was like one of those things that he put all those dictators on notice. Like, y'all want to keep running your mouth? Want to, you know, F around? Y'all about to find out. Love it. I love it. But, so I just want to play this last clip for you guys before we end this video, which is this. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss what comes next. Till next time.